Welcome to the Story Lab. I hope you enjoy this story. Let's begin. I adjusted the silverware on the dining table one last time, making sure everything was perfectly aligned. The aroma of rosemary roasted chicken filled the air, mingling with the scent of freshly baked bread. I smiled to myself, picturing Anna's reaction when she walked through the door. Tonight was special, a celebration of my hard work finally paying off. The clock on the wall ticked away, each minute stretching longer than the last. I poured myself a glass of wine, sipping it slowly as I waited. Anna was late, but that wasn't unusual. Her job in marketing often kept her at the office well past normal hours. The sound of keys jingling outside the front door perked me up. I straightened my tie and smoothed down my shirt, eager to share my good news. "Anna?" I called out as the door swung open. She stumbled in, her normally pristine appearance slightly disheveled. Her blouse was wrinkled, and her hair looked like she'd run her fingers through it multiple times. "John," she said, sounding surprised. "What's all this?" I approached her, arms open for an embrace, but she sidled past me, dropping her bag on the floor. "I have some great news," I said, following her into the living room. "I got the promotion. Senior architect at the firm. I wanted to surprise you with a special dinner to celebrate." Anna turned to face me, her eyes darting around the room. "Oh, that's wonderful, John. Congratulations." Her words lacked the enthusiasm I'd expected. I frowned, studying her closely. Something was off. Her cheeks were flushed, and there was a faint sheen of sweat on her forehead. As she moved to take off her jacket, I caught sight of something on her neck that made my blood run cold. "Anna," I said, my voice low and controlled. "What's that on your neck?" Her hand flew up to cover the spot, but it was too late. I'd seen the telltale marks: love bites, fresh and unmistakable. "It's nothing," she said quickly. "Just an allergic reaction to a new necklace I tried on at lunch." I stepped closer, my jaw clenching. "Don't lie to me. Those are hickeys." Anna's expression hardened, her initial nervousness replaced by defiance. "Oh, grow up, John. Not everything is about you and your paranoid suspicions." "Paranoid?" I repeated, my anger rising. "You come home looking like you've been mauled, and I'm paranoid for noticing?" She rolled her eyes, brushing past me towards the stairs. "I don't have time for this. I'm tired and I need a shower." I grabbed her arm, stopping her. "We're not done talking about this, Anna." She yanked her arm free, glaring at me. "Yes, we are. And you know what? Congratulations on your stupid promotion. I'm sure you'll love spending even more time at the office, ignoring me." With that, she stormed upstairs, leaving me standing there, my carefully prepared dinner growing cold on the table. I stood there for a long moment, my mind racing. The pieces were falling into place: her late nights, her distracted behavior, the sudden defensiveness. My wife was cheating on me. Instead of the crushing sadness I might have expected, I felt a cold fury building inside me. If Anna thought she could make a fool of me, she was gravely mistaken. I was going to find out exactly what was going on, and when I did, there would be hell to pay. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed the bottle of wine, and poured the contents down the sink. Then, methodically, I began clearing away the dinner I'd prepared. As I worked, I started forming a plan. Anna had no idea what she just set in motion. For the next week, I played the part of the oblivious husband. I left for work at my usual time, kissed Anna goodbye as if nothing had changed. But instead of heading to the office, I parked my car a block away and waited. It didn't take long for my suspicions to be confirmed. Every day, Anna left the house an hour after I did, dressed more provocatively than her usual work attire. I followed her at a discreet distance, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. On the fifth day, I hit pay dirt. Instead of heading towards her office, Anna drove to the Grand Meridian Hotel downtown. I watched as she walked confidently through the lobby, not even bothering to check if anyone was watching her. I parked my car and followed, my heart pounding with a mixture of rage and anticipation. In the elevator, I saw her press the button for the 14th floor. I waited a few minutes before taking the next one up. The hallway on the 14th floor was quiet, plush carpet muffling my footsteps. I moved slowly, listening for any sound that might give away which room Anna had entered. Then I heard it, a man's deep laugh, followed by Anna's distinctive giggle. I approached the door, room 1412, and pressed my ear against it. Their voices were muffled, but I could hear enough to know what was happening. My wife was in there, with another man, betraying everything we'd built together. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. Then, taking a deep breath, I knocked on the door. Room service. I called out, disguising my voice. There was a sudden scramble inside the room. I heard Anna's panicked whisper, "I thought you said you didn't order anything." The door opened a crack, and I shoved my foot in, pushing it wide open. Anna stood there, wrapped in a hotel bathrobe, her face a mask of shock and horror. "John," she gasped. What are you doing here?" I ignored her, my eyes scanning the room until they landed on the man scrambling to pull on his pants. He was tall, with slicked back hair, and an expensive watch glinting on his wrist. The kind of smug, self-assured prick I'd always despised. "So this is what working late looks like," I said, my voice eerily calm as I held up my phone, recording everything. The man I assumed this was the David mentioned in Anna's text that I'd read finally managed to get his pants on and stood up straight, trying to look imposing. "Look, buddy," he said, his tone condescending, "I think you should leave before this gets ugly." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Oh, it's already ugly, and it's about to get a whole lot uglier." Anna lunged for my phone, but I easily sidestepped her. "John, please," she begged. "We can talk about this." "Save it," I snapped. "I've got all the evidence I need right here." David took a step towards me, his fists clenched. "You'd better delete that video if you know what's good for you." I met his gaze, unflinching. "Or what? You'll add assault to adultery? Go ahead. Give me another reason to ruin you both." Anna started crying, big, theatrical sobs that might have moved me once. Now they just fueled my determination. "I'm leaving," I said, backing towards the door. "But this isn't over. Not by a long shot." As I walked out, I heard David comforting Anna, telling her not to worry, that they'd figure something out. Little did they know, I was already several steps ahead of them. Back in my car, I reviewed the video I'd taken. It was damning Anna in a bathrobe, David half-dressed, the rumpled bed clearly visible in the background. More than enough evidence for what I had planned. I drove straight to a copy shop and had several prints made of the most incriminating stills from the video. Then I went home, logged onto Anna's computer. She'd never bothered to change her password, and found her work email. Without hesitation, I composed a new message, attaching the photos and the video. I addressed it to her boss, her entire team, and for good measure, CC'd her parents and siblings. The subject line read, "The real reason for those late nights." My finger hovered over the send button for just a moment. Was I really going to do this? Destroy my wife's career and reputation in one fell swoop? The image of her in that hotel room, laughing with her lover, flashed through my mind. Any doubt I had vanished. I clicked send. Then I poured myself a drink and waited for the storm to hit. The front door slammed open with such force that the pictures on the wall rattled. Anna stormed in, her face a mask of fury and panic. "What have you done?" she screamed, hurling her bag at me. I dodged it easily, maintaining my position on the couch, drink in hand. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said calmly, taking a sip of my whiskey. Anna's phone buzzed incessantly in her hand. She glanced at it, her face paling even further. "My boss, my parents. John, how could you?" I stood up slowly, placing my glass on the coffee table. "How could I? That's rich, coming from you. How could you throw away our marriage for some sleazy affair?" She advanced on me, her finger jabbing at my chest. "You had no right. You've ruined everything." I caught her wrist, holding it firmly but not enough to hurt. "No, Anna. You ruined everything the moment you decided to cheat." She wrenched her hand away, tears streaming down her face. But I knew better than to fall for her act now. "I want a divorce," I said, my voice cold and final. Anna's expression changed, her tears drying up instantly. She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "A divorce? You think it's going to be that easy? I'll take you for everything you've got, John. By the time I'm done with you, You'll be living in a cardboard box. I smiled, a predatory grin that made her take a step back. I don't think so, Anna. You see, I've got all the evidence I need to prove your infidelity. No judge is going to look kindly on that. Her phone buzzed again, and she glanced at it, her face contorting with rage. David says you'd better watch your back. He knows people, John. Important people. He can make your life a living hell. I laughed, genuinely amused by the threat. Tell David I'm looking forward to it. In fact, why don't you call him right now? Put him on speaker. I'd love to have a chat with the man who's been screwing my wife. Anna's hands shook as she dialed, her eyes never leaving mine. When David's voice came through the speaker, it was tight with barely controlled anger. You little shit, he growled. You have no idea who you're messing with. I can ruin your career with one phone call. I leaned closer to the phone, my voice low and dangerous. Listen carefully, David. I don't care who you are or who you know. You chose the wrong man to cuckold. I'm going to dismantle your life piece by piece, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. There was a moment of stunned silence on the other end. Then David's voice came back, less certain now. You're bluffing. You don't have anything on me. I chuckled. Want to bet? I suggest you start getting your affairs in order, David. The storm's coming, and you're not going to weather it well. I reached out and ended the call, leaving Anna staring at me in shock and fear. John, she said, her voice small now. Please, can't we talk about this? We can work it out. I'll do anything. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but contempt. This woman, who I'd loved and trusted, who I'd built a life with, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. And now she thought she could manipulate me with tears and promises? It's too late for that, Anna, I said, moving past her towards the stairs. I want you out of this house by tomorrow. Take whatever you need for a few days. My lawyer will be in touch about the rest. As I climbed the stairs, I heard her collapse onto the couch, sobbing. Once, the sound would have broken my heart. Now, it only strengthened my resolve. In our bedroom, my bedroom, now I began packing up Anna's things. As I worked, I felt a sense of lightness, of freedom. The anger was still there, burning hot and bright, but it was focused now. I had a purpose, a mission. Anna, David, and anyone else who had laughed behind my back or enabled their affair, they were all going to pay. And I was going to enjoy every moment of it. I zipped up the last of Anna's suitcases and carried them downstairs, dropping them by the front door. Anna looked up, her makeup streaked down her face. John, please, she whispered. Don't do this. I opened the front door and gestured outside. Goodbye, Anna. I hope he was worth it. As she shuffled past me, dragging her suitcases, I felt no remorse, no second thoughts. This was just the beginning. The real war was about to start, and I was more than ready for it. I closed the door behind her, leaned against it, and for the first time in days, I smiled. Let them come. I was ready for whatever they might throw at me. And in the end, they would regret ever crossing John Miller. The morning after Anna left, I woke up feeling refreshed. The house was quiet, peaceful. No more walking on eggshells, no more pretending. I savored my coffee, scrolling through my phone to see the fallout from yesterday's revelations. My satisfaction was short-lived. A text from my colleague, Mike, popped up. John, what the hell is going on? HR wants to see you ASAP. I frowned, quickly getting dressed and heading to the office. As I walked through the lobby, I noticed the receptionist averting her eyes. In the elevator, conversations hushed as soon as I stepped in. When I reached my floor, my boss, Sarah, was waiting for me. Her expression was grim. John, we need to talk, she said, ushering me into her office. I sat down, maintaining a calm facade. What's this about, Sarah? She sighed, pushing a folder across her desk. We've received some concerning allegations about your behavior. I opened the folder, my jaw clenching as I read. According to these statements, I was an abusive, controlling husband who had been making Anna's life hell for years. This is bullshit, I said, my voice low and controlled. Anna's lying. Sarah leaned forward, her voice softening. John, I've known you for years. I want to believe you, but these allegations are serious. We have to investigate. I stood up, my mind racing. Fine. Investigate. You'll see it's all lies. As I left Sarah's office, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I answered cautiously. Mr. Miller, a stern voice said. This is Officer Ramirez from the police department. We need you to come down to the station. My stomach dropped. What's this about? Your wife has filed for a restraining order against you. We need to serve you the papers and get your statement. I ended the call, leaning against the wall for support. Anna was playing dirty, but I'd be damned if I'd let her win. At the police station, I sat across from Officer Ramirez, a stocky man with a perpetual frown. Mr. Miller, your wife claims you've been stalking her, making threatening calls, and that she fears for her safety. How do you respond? I leaned forward, meeting his gaze. Officer, my wife is having an affair. I caught her red-handed and now she's trying to deflect blame. I haven't contacted her since she left our house yesterday. Ramirez raised an eyebrow. Do you have any proof of this affair? I nodded. Check her work email. I sent evidence there yesterday. As Ramirez left to verify my claim, my lawyer, Rebecca, rushed in. John, I came as soon as I heard. Don't say another word without me present. For the next hour, Rebecca and I navigated the minefield of Anna's accusations. By the end, even Ramirez seemed skeptical of Anna's claims. We'll investigate further, he said, but for now, the restraining order stands. Stay away from your wife and her workplace. As we left the station, Rebecca turned to me. John, Anna's playing hardball. We need to be prepared for more. I nodded, a grim smile on my face. Oh, I'm prepared, Rebecca. Anna has no idea what's coming. Little did I know, Anna's schemes were just the beginning of my troubles. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of damage control. While Rebecca worked on fighting Anna's legal maneuvers, I threw myself into my work, determined not to let her false accusations affect my career. But it seemed the universe, or rather David, had other plans. One morning, I received a call from a major client, Mr. Yamamoto. Mr. Miller, he said, his voice cold. I'm calling to inform you that we're terminating our contract. I sat up straight, alarm bells ringing. Mr. Yamamoto, may I ask why? We've been nothing but diligent in our work for you. There was a pause. Let's just say we've received some concerning information about your personal conduct. We can't risk our reputation by associating with someone of questionable character. The call ended before I could respond. I slammed my fist on the desk, knowing exactly who was behind this. Over the next few days, the pattern repeated. Clients backed out, citing vague concerns about my reputation. Projects I'd worked on for months evaporated overnight. I was in my office, trying to salvage what I could, when my phone rang. David's number flashed on the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. Enjoying your little professional crisis, John? David's smug voice came through. I gritted my teeth. So this is your game, David? Trying to ruin my career? He chuckled. Oh, this is just the beginning. You see, John, I have friends in high places. One word from me, and doors close. You'll be lucky to design doghouses by the time I'm done with you. You're making a big mistake, David, I growled. I'm not some pushover you can bully into submission. Face it, John. You're out of your league. Why don't you just crawl back to Anna, beg for forgiveness, and we can all forget this ever happened? I laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. You clearly don't know me at all, David. I don't beg, and I certainly don't forget. You want to play dirty? Fine. But remember, you started this war. I'm just going to finish it. I hung up, my mind already formulating a plan. David thought he had the upper hand, but he'd just made a fatal mistake. He'd underestimated me. I called Rebecca. I need you to dig up everything you can on David's business practices. Every shady deal, every under-the-table payment, every ethical violation. Leave no stone unturned. Rebecca's voice was cautious. John, going after someone like David could be dangerous. Rebecca, David wants to play hardball? Let's show him how it's really done. For the next week, I worked tirelessly, calling in favors, reaching out to old contacts. Slowly, a picture of David's business empire began to emerge, and it wasn't pretty. Insider trading, embezzlement, bribes to city officials. David's success was built on a foundation of corruption and deceit. Armed with this information, I reached out to Sarah Collins, an investigative journalist I'd worked with on a previous project. Sarah, I've got a story for you. How'd you like to expose one of the biggest frauds in the business world? Sarah's interest was immediately piqued. I'm listening, John. What have you got? I laid out everything we'd uncovered about David. Sarah's excitement grew with each revelation. This is explosive stuff, John. If we can verify all this, it'll be the biggest story of the year. I smiled, feeling the tide turning. Oh, we can verify it. And I want you to run the story as soon as possible. As I ended the call, I felt a sense of grim satisfaction. David thought he could crush me with his connections and influence. He was about to learn that the pen, armed with the truth, was indeed mightier than the sword. The next morning, David's face was plastered across every major news outlet. Business tycoon implicated in massive fraud scandal, the headlines screamed. My phone buzzed with a text from David. You're dead, Miller. You hear me? Dead. I chuckled, typing back a response. Careful, David. Threats like that could be bad for your already tarnished public image. But please, keep digging that hole. It's entertaining to watch. As David's empire began to crumble under the weight of investigations and public outrage, I turned my attention to gathering more allies. It was time to find others who had been wronged by David, to build an army against him. The war was far from over, but for the first time since this all began, I felt the momentum shifting in my favor. David and Anna had no idea what was coming their way. As David's world imploded around him, I knew it was time to deliver the coup de grace. My investigation had uncovered one crucial detail. David was married, and his wife, Clara, was blissfully unaware of his infidelity. I arranged to meet Clara at a quiet cafe across town. As I waited, I rehearsed what I would say, knowing this conversation could be the key to destroying David completely. Clara arrived, a tall, elegant woman with a worried frown. Mr. Miller? I'm Clara Thompson. You said you had some important information about my husband? I stood, offering my hand. Mrs. Thompson, thank you for meeting me. Please, sit down. What I have to tell you isn't easy to hear. As we sat, I pulled out a folder containing photos of David and Anna together, along with financial records showing David's misdeeds. Mrs. Thompson, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but your husband has been having an affair with my wife, Anna. Clara's face paled as she looked at the photos. Her hands trembled as she pushed them away. No, there must be some mistake. David would never. I leaned forward, my voice gentle but firm. I'm afraid it's true, and there's more. These documents show that David has been involved in some highly unethical business practices. The recent news stories? They're just the tip of the iceberg. Clara's shock turned to anger as she pored over the documents. That bastard, she hissed. All these years, I stood by him, defended him against every rumor. And this is how he repays me? I nodded sympathetically. I know exactly how you feel, Clara. My wife betrayed me too. But we don't have to be victims. We can fight back. Clara looked up, a steely glint in her eyes. What did you have in mind? I smiled, sensing an ally. Well, as it happens, there's a charity gala coming up next week. All of Boston's elite will be there, including David. I thought it might be the perfect place for a public reckoning. A slow, vengeful smile spread across Clara's face. Mr. Miller, I think this could be the beginning of a beautiful partnership. Over the next week, Clara and I planned meticulously. We arranged for her to host the gala, ensuring David would attend. Meanwhile, I gathered more evidence, preparing for the final confrontation. The night of the gala arrived. I adjusted my tie, taking a deep breath before entering the opulent ballroom. The city's most influential people milled about, sipping champagne and making small talk. I spotted David across the room, looking haggard but trying to maintain his usual charm. Our eyes met, and his face darkened with rage. Before he could approach me, Clara took the stage, tapping a glass for attention. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming tonight. Before we begin the auction, I have a special presentation I'd like to share. The lights dimmed, and a projector screen lowered. David's face drained of color as images began to flash across the screen. Photos of him and Anna, documents detailing his fraudulent activities, bank statements showing massive transfers to offshore accounts. Clara's voice, cold and controlled, narrated each damning piece of evidence. My husband, David Thompson, has not only betrayed our marriage, but has also betrayed the trust of every person in this room. His business empire is built on lies, fraud, and corruption. The room erupted in shocked whispers. I watched with grim satisfaction as David's colleagues and friends backed away from him, their faces a mix of disgust and betrayal. David lunged for the stage. "Clara, stop this now. You don't know what you're doing." I stepped in his path, my voice low. "It's over, David. Your house of cards is falling, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." He swung at me, his fist connecting with my jaw. I staggered back but didn't fall. Security guards rushed in, restraining David as he shouted incoherently. As David was led away, I caught sight of Anna standing in the corner, her face a mask of horror. Our eyes met, and I saw the realization dawn on her. She had backed the wrong horse, and now she would go down with him. Clara approached me, handing me a glass of champagne. "Thank you, John. I couldn't have done this without you." I raised my glass in a toast. "To justice, Clara, and to new beginnings." As we clinked glasses, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The battle wasn't over yet, but tonight had been a decisive victory. David and Anna's world was crumbling, and from the ashes, I would rise stronger than ever. The aftermath of the charity gala was a whirlwind of chaos and retribution. David's empire crumbled overnight, his reputation in tatters. Anna, caught in the crossfire, found herself ostracized by the very social circles she once dominated. I sat in Rebecca's office, reviewing our strategy for the upcoming divorce proceedings. The mountain of evidence we had gathered against Anna and David loomed before us. "John, with everything we've uncovered, I'm confident we can push for a favorable settlement," Rebecca said, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. I leaned back in my chair, a grim smile playing on my lips. "Favorable isn't enough, Rebecca. I want to leave Anna with nothing." Rebecca raised an eyebrow. "That's a tall order, John. Even with the affair, courts usually aim for equitable distribution." I leaned forward, my voice low and determined. "Then we'll make it about more than just the affair. We'll show the court how Anna tried to destroy my reputation, how she filed false police reports. I want her exposed for the manipulative liar she is." Rebecca nodded slowly. "It's aggressive, but with the evidence we have, it just might work." I met her gaze, unflinching. "Anna made her choice when she betrayed me. Now she'll face the consequences." The day of the court hearing arrived. As I walked into the courtroom, I caught sight of Anna. She looked pale and drawn, a far cry from the confident woman who had once threatened to take everything from me. Our eyes met, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of fear in hers. Good. She should be afraid. The judge called the court to order, and our lawyers began their opening statements. Rebecca painted a vivid picture of Anna's infidelity and subsequent attempts to ruin my life. When it was Anna's lawyer's turn, he tried to spin a tale of emotional neglect and misunderstandings. I had to stifle a laugh at the sheer audacity of their lies. As the proceedings continued, Rebecca called witness after witness, each testimony more damning than the last. Colleagues spoke of Anna's erratic behavior, friends recounted her brazen lies, and even her own family members reluctantly admitted to her manipulative nature. When it was Anna's turn to testify, she tried to maintain her victim act. "Your Honor," John was cold and distant. I felt neglected, unloved. "David." He showed me the affection I was missing at home. I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to stand up and call out her lies. Rebecca caught my eye, silently urging me to stay calm. During cross-examination, Rebecca was relentless. "Mrs. Miller, can you explain these text messages where you boast about, and I quote, playing John for a fool?" Anna's face paled. I don't recall those messages." Rebecca pressed on. "And what about the false police report you filed? The one where you claimed Mr. Miller was stalking you, when in fact, you were the one harassing him at his workplace." Anna's composure cracked. "You don't understand. He was ruining everything. I had to do something." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. The judge called for order, but the damage was done. Anna's outburst had revealed her true nature. As the final arguments were made, I felt a sense of grim satisfaction. Anna's lies were unraveling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The judge's ruling came swiftly and decisively. In light of the evidence presented, the court finds in favor of Mr. Miller. Mrs. Miller's claims are dismissed, and Mr. Miller is granted the majority of the marital assets. I exhaled slowly, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. It was over. I had one. As we left the courtroom, Anna tried to approach me. "John, please. We can still work this out. I'm sorry for everything." I turned to her, my voice cold. "Save it, Anna. You're sorry you got caught. Nothing more. Enjoy the life you've made for yourself." With that, I walked away, leaving Anna standing alone in the corridor, the ruins of her life crumbling around her. Weeks passed, and I threw myself into rebuilding my life and career. The scandal had initially rocked my professional world, but as the truth came to light, clients began to return and new opportunities emerged. One evening, as I was working late at the office, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "John?" Anna's voice came through, sounding small and desperate. "Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you." I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. "What do you want, Anna?" I'm in trouble, John. I've lost everything. My job, my friends. I don't know what to do." "That's not my problem, Anna." "But John, I've changed. I realize now how wrong I was." I laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. "You must be more desperate than I thought." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Anna spoke again, her voice had hardened. "Fine, if that's how you want to play it. But remember, John, I'm not the only one with secrets. You might have won the battle, but this war isn't over." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, a feeling of unease settling in my stomach. What was Anna planning? I immediately called Rebecca. "Anna just called me. She made some vague threats. I think she might be up to something." Rebecca's voice was calm but concerned. "Do you think she'd actually try anything?" "I wouldn't put it past her. She's lost everything. People do desperate things when they're backed into a corner." "All right," Rebecca said. "I'll put my investigator on it. In the meantime, be careful, John. Document any further contact from Anna." One night, I received a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at the old warehouse on 5th Street. Come alone, or your dirty little secrets go public." You know which ones. I stared at the message, my mind racing. What secrets could Anna possibly think she had on me? It had to be a bluff, but could I risk ignoring it? Against my better judgment, I decided to go, but I wasn't about to walk into a potential trap unprepared. I called my friend Mark, an ex-cop I'd worked with before. "Mark, I need a favor. I'm meeting someone who might be trouble. I need you to be my backup." Mark agreed without hesitation. We set up a plan. He'd stay out of sight, but close enough to intervene if things went south. As I approached the warehouse, my every sense was on high alert. The area was deserted, the only sound the distant hum of traffic. I pushed open the rusty door, wincing at the loud creak it made. I called out, "I'm here. What's this about?" A figure stepped out of the shadows. But it wasn't Anna. It was David. "Hello, John," he said, a sinister smile playing on his lips. "Surprised to see me?" I tensed, ready for a fight. "What's going on, David? Where's Anna?" David chuckled, the sound echoing in the empty warehouse. "Oh, Anna's around. She's been quite helpful, actually. You see, John, you might have won the first round, but we're not done yet." From behind a stack of crates, Anna emerged, looking nervous but determined. "I'm sorry, John, but you left me no choice." I looked between them, realization dawning. "So this is your grand plan? What, are you going to try to frame me for something?" David's smile widened. "Oh, it's much better than that. You see, John, while you were busy playing the wronged husband, we've been busy too. We've got evidence that you've been embezzling from your clients. By the time we're done, you'll be lucky if you're not behind bars." I laughed, genuinely amused. "That's your play? Fabricated evidence? You two really are desperate." Anna stepped forward, her voice pleading. "It doesn't have to be this way, John. Just Just agree to revise the divorce settlement. Give me what I deserve, and this all goes away. I looked at her, seeing not the woman I once loved, but a stranger. A desperate, pathetic stranger. You want to know what you deserve, Anna? This. I pulled out my phone and hit a button. Suddenly, the warehouse was flooded with light as police officers swarmed in from every entrance. David's face contorted with rage. What have you done? I smiled coldly. Did you really think I'd come here alone? Every word you've said has been recorded. Attempted blackmail, conspiracy to commit fraud. I'm sure the police will be very interested in adding these charges to your growing list. David and Anna were led away in handcuffs, and watched the police car drive them away. The days following David and Anna's arrest were a blur of police statements and legal consultations. I had managed to turn the tables on their scheme, but I knew better than to let my guard down. People like David and Anna, when cornered, were capable of anything. My suspicions were confirmed when Rebecca called me into her office urgently one morning. "John, we've got a problem," she said, her usual composure rattled. "Our sources in the police department just informed me that David's been released on bail." I felt a chill run down my spine. How is that possible? With all the charges against him? Rebecca shook her head, frustration evident in her voice. "He still has some powerful friends, but that's not the worst of it. Apparently, he was overheard making some very specific threats against you." I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. "So what's our next move?" Rebecca's eyes met mine, fierce and determined. "We go on the offensive. We've got enough evidence to bury David for good. It's time we use it." Over the next few hours, Rebecca and I worked tirelessly, compiling every shred of evidence we had against David. Financial records, witness testimonies, recorded conversations, all of it painted a damning picture of a man willing to do anything to save his own skin. As evening fell, I decided to head home, my mind racing with plans and contingencies. The streets were quiet, the city settling into its nightly routine. But as I approached my apartment building, a sense of unease washed over me. The door to my apartment was slightly ajar. Heart pounding, I pushed it open slowly, ready for anything. The living room was dark, but I could make out a figure sitting in my armchair. "Hello, John." David's voice cut through the darkness. "I think it's time we had a little chat." I flicked on the lights, revealing David's haggard face. He looked like a man on the edge, desperate and dangerous. "How did you get in here?" I demanded, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. David smiled, a cold, humorless expression. "You'd be surprised what a little money can buy. But that's not important right now. What's important is what happens next." I remained standing, keeping my distance. "And what exactly did you have in mind?" David leaned forward, his eyes glinting with malice. "It's simple, really. You're going to call your lawyer and tell her to drop all charges against me. You're going to sign a statement confessing to fabricating evidence against me. And then, you're going to disappear." I couldn't help but laugh. "And why would I do any of that?" David's smile widened. "Because if you don't, Anna dies." My blood ran cold. Despite everything, the thought of Anna in danger still affected me. "What have you done, David?" He waved his hand dismissively. "Anna's safe for now. But one call from me, and well, let's just say she won't be enjoying her time in custody anymore." I took a deep breath, my mind racing. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't risk adding murder to your charges." David stood up abruptly, his facade of calm cracking. "You think I care about charges at this point? You've ruined me, John. My reputation, my business, everything. I have nothing left to lose." As David ranted, I noticed something that made my heart skip a beat. A small red dot had appeared on his chest. Mark, my ex-cop friend who's a PI now, must have followed me home and was now positioned outside with a sniper rifle. I held up my hands, as if in surrender, but it was really a signal to Mark. "All right, David, you win. I'll do what you want. Just don't hurt Anna." David's face lit up with triumph. "I knew you'd see reason, John. Now, let's make that call to your lawyer, shall we?" As David reached for his phone, I made my move. I lunged forward, tackling him to the ground just as a shot rang out, shattering the window behind where David had been standing. We grappled on the floor, David's desperation lending him strength. But years of working construction in my youth had left me stronger than I looked. I managed to pin David down just as the police, alerted by the gunshot, burst through the door. As the officers handcuffed David, I sat back, breathing heavily. It was over. Really, truly over. In the following days, the full extent of David's desperation came to light. There had been no real threat to Anna. She had been safely in custody the entire time. David had been bluffing, making a last, desperate attempt to save himself. The trial was swift and decisive. With the mountain of evidence against them, both David and Anna were sentenced to significant prison terms. As I watched them being led away, I felt a profound relief that this chapter of my life was finally closed. As I left the courthouse for the last time, Rebecca caught up with me. "John," she said, her voice gentle, "I know this has been a long, hard road, but it's over now. You won." I nodded, managing a small smile. "Yeah, I guess I did." As we walked down the steps, I felt lighter than I had in months. The future stretched out before me, full of possibilities. I had survived the storm, and I was ready for whatever came next. The warm spring sun bathed my face as I stood outside the newly completed Miller Architectural Center. A crowd had gathered for the grand opening, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. This building, my vision brought to life, stood as a testament to my resilience and determination. "Mr. Miller," a reporter called out, pushing through the crowd, "how does it feel to see your dream project finally realized, especially after everything you've been through?" I smiled, memories of the past year flashing through my mind. "It feels incredible. This center represents not just my work, but the power of perseverance. No matter what life throws at you, you can always rebuild." As the reporter jotted down my words, I caught sight of a familiar face in the crowd. Emma, my assistant turned friend, beamed at me with unmistakable pride. Our eyes met, and I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the spring sun. After the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Emma made her way to my side. "Congratulations, John," she said, her voice soft. "You deserve this moment." I took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "I couldn't have done it without you, Emma. You stood by me through the worst of it." She blushed slightly, her eyes sparkling. "Well, someone had to keep you in line." We shared a laugh, and I marveled at how easy it felt. With Emma, there was no pretense, no games, just genuine connection. "Join me for dinner tonight?" I asked, surprised by my own boldness. "To celebrate?" Emma's smile widened. "I'd love to." As the crowd began to disperse, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Rebecca. "Turn on the news. You're going to want to see this." Curious, I pulled out my tablet and quickly pulled up a news stream. The headline made my breath catch. "Disgraced businessman David Thompson faces additional charges in prison scandal." The reporter's voice filled the air. In a shocking turn of events, David Thompson, already serving time for fraud and attempted blackmail, is now facing new charges. Sources say Thompson attempted to bribe prison officials and orchestrate an escape plan. This latest development is likely to add years to his sentence. I turned off the stream, shaking my head. Even behind bars, David couldn't help but dig himself deeper. "Everything okay?" Emma asked, concern evident in her voice. I nodded, feeling a sense of closure wash over me. "Yeah, everything's fine. Just some old ghosts finally being laid to rest." As we walked away from the building, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. The betrayal, the pain, the fights, they had all shaped me, made me stronger. But they didn't define me. "You know," I said to Emma as we reached my car, "a year ago, I thought my life was over. I'd lost everything that mattered to me." Emma looked at me, her gaze understanding. "And now?" I smiled, truly smiled, for what felt like the first time in ages. "Now, I realize I've gained so much more than I ever lost. I've got my integrity, my career, and—" I paused, meeting her eyes, the promise of something new and beautiful. Emma's hand found mine, her touch sending a thrill through me. "To new beginnings," she said softly. "To new beginnings," I echoed, feeling. For the first time in a long time, genuinely excited for the future. As we drove away from the Miller Architectural Center, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Not for the trials I'd faced, but for the strength I'd found within myself to overcome them. The road hadn't been easy, but it had led me here, to this moment, to new possibilities. I glanced at Emma, her profile illuminated by the setting sun, and felt a surge of hope. The past was behind me, the future bright with promise, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms and an open heart. Life had given me a second chance, and I was determined to make the most of it. After all, the best revenge isn't just living while it's thriving, growing, and finding happiness in unexpected places. I smiled to myself. This wasn't an ending. It was a new beginning, and I couldn't wait to see where it would lead. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.